Picks and Bets here on the Mayo Media Network, presented by Prize Picks. I am Matt Moody. DJ Mitchell is with me to talk about Thursday's NHL action, which includes the Buffalo Sabres.
The best.
DJ, we're back. The Sabres are back.
We're back.
You know, we're just all in, baby. We're all in.
But what are their odds to make the playoffs? Like, get in on it now. They're not going to stop winning. So it's just all the way to missing the playoffs by like 8 points instead of like by 100. Very fun times to be a Sabres fan. All the guys that we were worried about not being good might still not be good, but you wouldn't know it by the way they're playing. So all of the top picks. You
wouldn't know it by the way we're talking about them at this point.
No. They beat the Devils, and there it was. Like,
on this Thursday, we do have 10 games to get through those, so let's not dilly-dally around. You know, it's a very similar slate to what we talked about on Tuesday, you know, just in terms of betting, and all the matchups are, most of them are the exact same. We'll try to sprinkle in some new excitement there. But before we get into the 10 games that we have to cover, I do want to talk to you about Prize Picks. So head on over to prizepicks.com. Use promo code MMN when you sign up for a up to $100 match deposit bonus. What you do on Prize Picks is you pick up to 5 players across multiple sports. It can be more than just hockey. And you pick the over or the under on their fantasy score. So for hockey, it's pretty straightforward. You get 3 points for a goal, you get 2 points for an assist, and you get a half point for a block and a half point for a shot on goal. So, you want volume shooters, you want players who are going to put up points, you obviously players in good matchups. So we do wish you luck going over there. And obviously we would be remiss not to mention the Masters going on. So hopefully you all, tuned into some of Pat's content. He had a ton of good content this week. Very entertaining.
It seemed like every time I looked at my podcast feed, it was like 3 new Pat Mayos, and like I listened to as much as I possibly could ingest, and it was just great though. It really is great. It's good content. It's funny. So definitely big fan of that. Good call.
Yeah. So, you can go out there and, Prize Picks, you can just go like, Justin Thomas, you can do the Sabres, or whatever whatever players listed for the Sabres. You can pick NBA, there's so many ways to go, so many options for you to build your entries. So just make sure you head on over there, use promo code MMN when you sign up. So DJ, we have 10 games to get through. We're leading it off with a banger, the hot stuff, the Buffalo Sabres on a 5-game point streak. They are almost favorites at home. They are plus 110 on the money line. Almost favorites. Is that a good chance?
It's hang the banner from the rafters. We haven't hung a banner in Buffalo since the dawn of time. So it's about that time, almost to be a favorite in a game. It's pretty cool. I mean, the Devils just traded Palmieri and Zaka, which obviously
Zajac. Not Zaka.
Oh my God. You're right. Sorry. The other guy that starts with a Z. The Devils were already bad. We haven't seen Palmieri in a while. But Zajac is not a terrible player. He's eating up a lot of minutes in power play one time, so it does open up a new role. We'll get to that maybe in a second. I like the Sabres here just fine. They're riding hot. The new coach has ignited them maybe in some capacity. We see that quite often when a team fires a guy and brings in someone new. The 5.5 over bet again is pretty strong in my eyes. I think either way on that, the Sabres money line or the over. I don't like to bet on the Sabres, which has been very lucrative to me this year. So I think the over is probably more where my head's at with this. But other than that, I think we have a really high concentration of minutes for a select, top 7 players. The Sabres ran 11-7 last game. I assume they'll do that again after winning. So that opened up a lot of, minutes for the guys on offense. The Devils, I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously, they're not going to play Palmieri again, but they're also not going to play Zajac. So that should bring Sharangovich, I say correctly, to the top power play. We're going to have to, we don't have confirmation of that. In the last game, he did get some run with the first unit. So that would lead me to believe he's going to be there again. Jack Hughes has seen a ton of minutes as of late, a lot of power play time. So I think that, Jack Hughes in this matchup is going to be interesting to me for player props, etc. He hasn't quite been the shooter that I've been, we've been hoping for maybe, but he's been good. Other than that, for the Sabres, the guys that have been really blowing up are Casey Middlestad, kind of getting it together. I think Tage Thompson to score at plus 370 is a fair enough bet. Maybe not the best on the slate by any stretch, but it's pretty good. He shoots a lot. Rasmus Dahlin, how many points, Matt? You're talking.
I'm going 3-point bonus. Like he's back.
There it is.
Yeah. So
that's the hot take of the night.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like the thing with Dahlin is like he actually looks comfortable with the puck on his stick. He was treating it like a hand grenade to start the year. Well, maybe not to start the year, but like in the stretch, he was one of the most like visibly awful Buffalo Sabres, which was very surprising given just his pedigree and all that. So I actually do think Dahlin just makes a really great player prop. Like he looks so comfortable out there. He's even like on Zoom calls, like, you know, in his interviews, he's saying like, I don't know what it is, but, you know, Don Granato just makes me feel so comfortable or whatever, like in his, you know, in his Swedish, like, you know, language, like he's sort of like, you know, using, I don't know what they call it, like the broken English to basically get that point across. Like he feels so much more comfortable, which is, you know, very surprising given, you know, Ralph Kruger is Swedish himself and all that. Yeah. So, you know, it's just very interesting to hear like such candid, you know, response. And some of that comes with winning, of course, and who knows how interlinked the two are. But yeah, I love the over in this game again. That's my favorite bet. It hit 8 goals last game. Yeah. I you know, in the underlying numbers are still very much there to support that. I just don't get why the total is 5.5 here. It should be 6. So give me the over. Anything else here?
The last thing is I do think this is a very easy way to on DraftKings or on FanDuel, if you play over there, to get the McDavids and Dreisaitl's of the world in your lineups. I think it's going to be really, really popular, obviously, getting Edmonton. But this game, I think we both comfortably like the over. And the most expensive forward, Matt, on DraftKings, could you tell me who it is and their price off the top of your head?
It's is it Jack Hughes at 5,200 on DraftKings?
That is correct. It's Jack
Bingo.
Hughes. And like by a decent, a huge margin. Yeah. But Reinhardt's the most expensive Sabre forward is Taylor Hall, but he's not going to play, like almost certainly. So after that, it is 4,300 Sam Reinhart.
Yeah, and look, not to spoil the lead, but the last 7:00 game we went to 8 games away is this Edmonton Ottawa game. Yeah. And when you're playing DFS, that is so overwhelmingly popular that you aren't going to need cheap guys to get in, you know, McDavid Dress. So yeah, that's definitely what I'm using this game for. Yeah, and if we do like the over, you know, it's a great spot to pick up some value pieces. So let's move from there over to Philadelphia at the Islanders. The Islanders, you know, like you mentioned, trading for Zajac and Palmieri. It does sound like they will be available. They've already confirmed that they will take morning skate with the team and that the coach will decide if they play or not. So I sort of take that to mean like they're in. So, you know, there's no quarantine, there's no restrictions. Obviously, they just had to hop in a car and drive 40 minutes to the, you know, Islanders facility from Newark. So it's not that big a deal for them. And so, yeah, I mean, minus 167 here on the Islanders does feel almost a little bit long. But I still think I'm able, you know, I'm pretty comfortable riding like the, you know, the excitement around, you know, bringing in a guy like Palmieri, who's obviously going to help their top line, which, as you noted previously, had been filled with guys like Leo Komarov in the absence of Anders Lee. So I still think I'm siding with the Islanders here. Over under 5.5. I think I'm just staying away because even though most over unders are dependent on goalies, this one really does feel dependent on Philly can just keep a damn puck out of their net. So any thoughts on like how Palmieri fits with this team or any thoughts on the trade in general before we sort of talk about some, you know, betting ramifications of it?
I mean, Palmieri almost definitely is going to fit that role next to Matthew Barzal. And I love that for him. He is been a good rate shooter in his career. This year it's been a bit of an outlier, but obviously it wasn't working in New Jersey this year. So I'm willing to give him a pass and see what he can do with the Islanders. So I'm a big fan of the move. If he does play at 5,200, I think that is in play against the Flyers because, as you mentioned, you know, either goalie that's in for the Flyers still could be terrible. Obviously, Carter Hart has been absolutely awful. I've tried again. It's broken, but Brian Elliott's an 890 save percentage goalie in his own right. So
not very good.
It's a marginal upgrade over Carter Hart, but still is AHL quality, like AHL starter quality when they get bumped to the NHL at best. And that is just something that I just don't want to take a 5.5 bet on, like you said. And also on the other end of that, like get some of these, Islanders to go back against it. I'm not going to go crazy on it, but I think Pulock, who finally smashed for us with Barzal and Palmieri, if that fits, that could work.
If Palmieri plays, I mean, he very clearly fits onto the top line of in Komarov's spot and the top power play in Matt Martin's spot. Like it literally feels like they were just leaving a spot open for a trade acquisition, be it a Taylor Hall or Cal Palmieri. Palmieri does seem like he was Anders Lee in sheep's clothing, I guess. So it's sort of 5,200 is just cheaper than what we were getting Lee at for most of the season. So I'm interested in taking a stab early, before we see how it works, just to see, to take that risk, I guess, rather than waiting and seeing. So that's sort of what we're operating under, that they will play. Obviously, if not, there's, not a ton of interest in guys like Komarov, Matt Martin. But I do, Ryan Pulock, I believe he had a shot prop over on FanDuel the other day that I bet. And, he finally got us a point. So DFS he hit, like, it was great. It was wonderful. So, I think I'm, still in on the Islanders side here. Anything else before we move on?
Nope, I think I'm ready. Let's move over to the Pittsburgh Rangers game, which it was funny because I had some baseball lineups with Rangers in it, and I just kept thinking, like, who's going to outscore each other? Will it be Texas Rangers or the New York Rangers? And the New York Rangers did it. They were awesome. It was, obviously the second line, or 1B with Panarin, that was the one to, break the slate and win the slate on DraftKings. And I think it could happen again. Panarin has been on another planet as of late. He has just his most recent DraftKings 3 games. He has over 20 in all 3 of them for fantasy points. Oh, 4 of them, all 4 in Division 4, 23, 23.5, 24.1, and 29.5. Absolutely on fire, shooting a lot, playing with Blackwell and what's his name? Strome. That's not going to change. And then the point man on that, Adam Fox. I mean, what an amazing player he's been. A guy that, kind of did the college route, and sometimes those guys don't quite get there. Like Justin Schultz was like the comparable. Like everyone thought he was going to be just a world-beating defenseman. Adam Fox, I think people were like, oh, is he going to be that guy too? And he has been, and it's been awesome to see. I think if you could get a point prop on him, I definitely would take it. Matt, is there anything else you want to add to him or this game in general?
No, Adam Fox has been so ridiculously consistent now for a while.
Remember his minimum salary on FanDuel for like 4 months.
I'm not sure that he's still not minimum salary over on FanDuel. Like they just refuse to move him.
They just don't do it yet.
But yeah, he's like, even though the shots haven't really been there the last few games, like he's still putting up the points, and he's so involved offensively that you would think that, some of those lack of shots is like, hey, there's a wide open goal over that way. And, he just passes it over to Panarin, who then, gets the goal. So I'm not really worried about like the lack of floor stats lately. He's been very, very consistent with that, in his short-lived time, but his time on the top power play and basically playing all these minutes for the Rangers. I love Adam Fox here. He's basically a point per game player, which is, very hard to do as a defenseman, and it's in a great matchup. So minus 122 on the Rangers. I don't know how willing I am to chase that, because I do think there is, more to give than Pittsburgh offered lastly. Obviously they gave up 8 goals, not a great effort from them. But Sidney Crosby's still playing well. Jared McCann is red hot at the moment. He has 4 power play goals in his last 6 games. Like he's very capably filled in for Evgeny Malkin. As long as Malkin's out, I think Jared McCann is a guy who I'm very happy to, try and pick up on maybe slow to react odds. I just, if you bet him to score a goal, you're still getting better value than guys like Brian Rust, who have fallen off the face of the earth.
He died. I miss him.
Yeah, so I'm really in on this game going over the 6. If you did that last game, you could have done it twice. So let's do that again.
Yeah, I think that's all very fair points. You're not going to get a lot of equity on any of these to score props other than I think McCann is fair, but maybe Strome. I don't know. He's actually been a good rate shooter. So it's
Yeah, and he scored
potential
last
there.
game, so
And he scored
why
last game. So
not?
I could see that being a thing. But other than that, I think we can move over if you're ready to Boston at the Capitals.
Yeah, absolutely. So Boston, the big news there on Tuesday was the hat trick of Patrice Bergeron. But maybe even bigger news for Thursday's slate was Charlie McAvoy as a late scratch. Or not a late scratch, but he wasn't on the ice for warmups. It was unexpected. We don't really know too much about his situation. So obviously losing McAvoy would be a huge blow for a blue line that, already lost Chara and Torrey Krug in the offseason and, hasn't really replaced him with all too much. That's, NHL caliber, let's say. So I don't know. I'm sitting here with this line of Washington minus 118. Like, if I can quickly react to some McAvoy news, like when we get it in morning skate or something like that, I might be tempted to go with the cap side here. And sort of similar lines, like 5.5 over under. I like this feels like a 6 all day. So I think I will bet the over on this game. It did feel like we were betting a lot of overs on Tuesday as well. And someone reached out to me on Twitter. He was like, hey, betting all the overs really worked tonight. And you look, and it was like basically every single game except Nashville, I think. So
don't talk about Nashville. We don't talk about them on this. They
as long as you didn't play the first line, you were fine. Which I played the first line, so I'm not fine.
Yeah. Everything you said, I agree with. I think the over slightly, but I'm probably less inclined to take the over and more inclined to take the Capitals, as you mentioned. I think they're just a decently good team. Like, I think this game is basically a pick 'em, and it should be, but Washington at home gives them a very, very slight edge. I like that a lot, especially because this Boston team is down to a guy, Camphor, on the second power play at this point. A guy that's been scratched at times. He might end up being sort of the punt defenseman that garnishes the most ownership at 2,500, just because he does block a decent number of shots and shoots a decent number of times. So for the DraftKings stuff, he might not fit our favorite stacks, but it's worth mentioning there. Other than that, though, it's gonna be really hard to make a lineup around this game because all of the pieces you're going to need that are going to be the pieces that win the game are just too expensive to put all together. Like Ovi, Carlson, Marchand, Bergeron. Like, you can't make a lineup like that. You're just out of money. So I think more than not, this game's going to be somewhat of a fade, and I'm going to hope for the under. I'm not willing to bet on it because I do think the pace in this game should be good enough to get it to the over. So is there one or two players here that you really like more than the rest in this matchup? Is there any other, maybe like something you want to just mention or just move on?
I'm feeling really bad for even mentioning this, but Stephen Camphor, if he's on the power play, is 12-1 to score a goal. He's been shooting. I just sort of see that, like, when a guy like just pick a name, pick a guy, but like Michael Scarbosa is plus 510. Like, right. Justin Schultz plus 650. Like, I get Schultz is, fine, but like you're getting, really long odds on a guy who is on a power play technically. So I could see that just being like a, roll boost, an opportunity boost. I'm definitely in on him for DFS, punt wise. Like, that's definitely going to be the play of the night. We saw it, last time out. No reason to think it won't be the case. I'm in on Evgeny Kuznetsov and Ovi. They were reunited last game, so 5-on-5 power play. Like, I'm all in on Kuzi. 4.5 for him. When you get him at lowish price, like, he's always a guy who has that sort of upside that you're looking for. Not a ton of floor, but that's, that comes with the price. So I'm very in on stacking those two up. If I, can fit them in somehow with Edmonton, I will. But definitely as like a, pivot off of it, I certainly see that as one of the better places to go because I'm not chasing that Bergeron game. I'm not chasing Pastrnak at his still ridiculous price. So, we can move on if you are feeling ready.
Yeah, let's do it. So let's get to Florida, Carolina. Again, one of the games I was most excited for many reasons, and that was my only good lineup, was my full game stack here. Had all the right pieces, and it worked out. Obviously, Marchment was kind of the focal point there, plus 400 to score. I know I mentioned on the Morning Skate pod him as one of my guaranteed goals. I think that he is, again, like maybe the best value on the entire slate, as long as there's no changes to their lineup, playing with Barkov. Like, put almost any player with some sort of skill, which he seems to have, with Barkov, and just enjoy that. So this game last time out, Carolina did get the win. What was the final? 5-2. Did hit the over. The one thing about Florida is they did run 11-7, and a new guy that I'd never heard of until this game stepped in. This was his first game, right?
I think he played a couple times because he came out of college. He played over the weekend.
It was his third game. He wasn't on the first couple. It wasn't on the first slate at all. This is the second slate that he was on. That's what I was thinking of. Okay. Kerstead, which unfortunately he's not defenseman eligible on DraftKings. I'm guessing you might not even be on FanDuel at all. Another minimum salary guy, though. So, again, these two punts that we could get to help us get the McDavids and Draisaitl's. He played 21 minutes and power play 2. 2-1. We don't really know. So, he could be – he should be in the power play in some capacity.
Yeah, we're basically trying to diagnose the last game when it comes to this slate, because it's basically what we thought going into Tuesday with some slate adjustments. On Tuesday, Keith Yandle did get benched. He took a penalty, I think, in the second, and he just didn't see the ice again. So that, I don't think that sticks or anything. Like, I'm guessing Yandle will suit up. He will play on the top power play. Like, Yandle's actually playing some of the most percentage of the power play of any player in the league. He's up at like 70-something% this year, which is like akin to, like the next tier below McDavid, Draisaitl. Like, he's their power play specialist. So I have no reason to suspect that, like Kierstead or whatever will get like the top power play billing. So I don't really think that'll hold, but you're getting a guy for 2.5 who, should play 18, 19 minutes. And, he's shown relatively decent involvement in terms of shots and blocks. So he's not a guy who I think is a bad play at all. As far as betting this game goes, I think for me, it's Florida getting the slate value there, plus 121. I'm definitely going both ways on that because, Carolina does have multiple ways they could hurt you. But I thought there was a lot to like from their game on Tuesday out of Florida. And, a guy like Mason Marchment, like, doesn't really pop, but if he can get Barkov still playing well and they can get, the Wenberg line also playing well, like, you're talking two lines that I think can compete with Carolina here. So I like taking some value there, plus 121. And as far as the over-under goes, I think I'm staying away from it. 6 over-under, because I kind of like Bobrovsky. I could even make an argument for, Mrazek if he's starting in terms of DFS goalies. So I think I just want to stay away from the over-under there.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I game stacked it last time out and it worked, but I kind of like the under here a little bit with the 6. I think it's very fairly priced. And then I also think that the Florida side is more intriguing from a betting standpoint, but it's probably just a stay away. I think this is just one bounce away from going either way. And I just don't want to, put too much into this. And normally it is at these prices, but Florida for the value, but I probably don't touch it. I'd rather get a player prop, just like get a parlay with the over on the shots for Barkov if it's fairly priced, which I think it will be. Other than that, their defense is an absolute mess. So no idea.
Svechnikov missed the shot prop yet again for me.
Yeah, we're done. We're done with that for now. I'm taking a break.
Yeah, just a little reset button there, I think, for Mr. Svechnikov. All right, let's go from there into Tampa at Columbus. I mean, what more is there to say about the effort Tampa put up? I mean, they just got smoked by Columbus.
Mm-hmm. They did.
Is Tampa broken? Like,
no.
Are they,
no.
Like, is this just Columbus team that has had success against them in the past, just continuing their magic, their Torts magic? Like, what's going on here? I have no idea.
I mean, this is my take on the game. At least this is what I'm going to do, is I'm going to have I believe Tampa's going to go back to Stamkos plot and point. Like that seems like what they did for most of the end of last game, and I think they keep it out there. I am going to have that in stacks in lineups for sure. I'm probably not touching a single prop or anything in this game other than just playing it on DraftKings because I don't know. Tampa seems pretty eager to move it. The only prop, once again, is the Hedman shot on goal that like is gonna find itself into some betting for me. Everything else, I just don't trust either of these teams to like allow their players to just function. Like Torts out coaches himself all the time, and you could take a guy like Atkinson, who seems like a decently safe guy for the shot prop, and he hasn't in a long time. But you look back on the 27th of March. Pretty much benched him, 14 minutes of ice time. Like, I just don't, like, if Tampa gets up and, Atkinson takes a penalty that Torres doesn't like, so I'm just not going to play with fire here. I'm just going to play a few lineups with Tampa 1 because I think they have a huge upside and their prices have been really, really low compared to normal in a matchup that I like against Columbus. Like, Columbus has given up a decent amount defensively and their goaltending has been right around average. So I'm in on it myself. Other than that, maybe stay away.
Yeah. I just feel like if I'm dabbling in this game, it almost feels like there might be more value on at least some of the players on the Columbus side, because, it just does feel like they're not being priced to where their usage is. A guy like Oliver Bjorkstrand plus 260 to score, like, I like Yanni Gourde. Like, he's a good player, but he should not be more likely to score a goal than, Oliver Bjorkstrand. Same goes for, maybe Killorn with the top power play. You could make that argument, but like, I just don't really see a reason for, like a guy like Bjorkstrand to be this low to score a goal. He'll be right around even money on the shot prop as well. So I like him. He's playing at 5-on-5, with Texier and Laine. So, very offensively oriented, should get a lot of ozone starts. And then Texier, if you're talking DFS, like he's 2.7, seems to have earned towards his trust back, playing 18 minutes last game, playing at least 16 minutes in each of his last handful of games. So I do think that there's a lot to like on the Columbus side, not because they're going to win, but because they offer some value. And Tampa does take a lot of penalties, as we've discussed multiple times here. So,
does that about do it for you here?
Yeah, that does it for me.
Let's get over to Winnipeg at Montreal. Montreal on a back-to-back. Winnipeg coming into Montreal, like who I mentioned, just lost to Toronto as Jack Campbell, I think, broke the record for most consecutive wins or something like that, or the longest time elapsed between wins. He broke a record. Good for him. Long time coming for one of the top goalie prospects of like ever at the time he was drafted to finally get there at 29. Like, goalies are voodoo, and the voodoo has shifted in his favor. But irregardless, Winnipeg being a favorite, I'm in on that for sure. Even though it's on the road and Montreal's been pretty formidable, I still like Winnipeg's also good. If Hellebuck's in net especially, that's going to be even more boosted. But Brisebois actually been fine this year. Either way, I think Winnipeg is just as likely to win this game, and that's just not what the pricing is indicating. So Montreal in the back-to-back, no thank you. Give me Winnipeg.
Yeah, I love this Winnipeg line, plus 128. Give me all of that. Montreal without Gallagher, Corey Perry did step up. So, yeah. I mean, maybe you want to ride that narrative, but I do think that Montreal does take a hit. And then just begin with, I mean, Winnipeg, I feel like Winnipeg's usually on the Meany shows because all I can think about is him just talking about how undervalued that Winnipeg seems to be just, in terms of betting. And I get it because they do tend to outscore their expected goals and all of that because, they have Hellebuck, a lot of shooting talent. But at some point you got to realize this is their baseline. And they are going to do that. And a team like Montreal, which does not beat their percentages, I'm just very in on getting a rested Winnipeg team versus a tired Montreal team, at plus money. That just makes a lot of sense to me. So I do think that's one of my favorite bets on the entire night. For Winnipeg, Blake Wheeler is going to be out. He did not travel with the team. He had Supposed concussion symptoms, hasn't yet been diagnosed or anything, but they did obviously want to be careful. So we will be without Blake Wheeler. For me, I'm not really sure I care that much because it's very clear that Blake Wheeler was sort of a power play guy at this point, and that's about it. And they can just slot in, Nick Hellers and suffer no consequences. So, yeah, any like players you like here?
Yeah, I think that Nick Hellers, what you're saying there, especially because of the first unit, is going to be someone that might slip into a couple of lineups for me. That's pretty strong. Other than that, I mean, I don't know how much of this game I'm going to have. I kind of like the under, even though it's at 6, and I know it's a Canadian matchup. Just fine, especially if, like I said, if Hellebuck's in net. I still think he's one of the elite goalies in the league. So that should be the way that goes. And then Montreal, I know they had Price being out. If Allen's in again, he's actually been really, really good for them, I'd say. So, I like the under just fine. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be super heavy on any of these bets other than the idea of maybe getting a little bit of Eller's action. His shot prop used to be pretty strong over on FanDuel, but he's kind of tailed off a bit. And with Wheeler out, not that he was taking the shots away, but taking the ice time away. So that might give him a bit of a boost in my eye. The only other player that might garnish a bit more is a guy like Andrew Kopp, who does have a really good profile for shooting. You're not going to get that on DraftKings Sportsbook, but if Kopp does get like a bigger role in some capacity, maybe you could find that on FanDuel for shots or points or something and ride that out. He's due for a 4-point game. He hasn't done it in just long enough yet. So,
yeah, I mean, Andrew Kopp is not my sort of guy, but I get the reasons you would like him. One player who does sort of feel like he could step into a Blake Wheeler-esque role if asked to, which again, not really with Scheifele at 5-on-5. I'm not even sure that I, care that much because I'm just focusing in on, Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers. Mason Appleton, he's shown up this year a number of times. And I think he's the sort of like offensively talented, like top 6 guy that you might think versus, a guy who they're obviously comfortable using in a shutdown role like Kopp. So I do think we could see a tick upward from Appleton. It does seem like the Blake Wheeler news actually got his line from plus 410 all the way up to plus 380 to score a goal. So, it's moving up slowly, but he's a guy I could see some value being in there on. And then obviously, Corey Perry scoring 2 goals against the Leafs. He is going to be the net front sort of presence that Gallagher was, plus 325. If you buy that, if you like the Montreal side here, I do think Corey Perry does offer some good value, but I'm more banking on it being a Hellebuck game, like you mentioned. So maybe the under, but mostly Hellebuck and DFS because this is like the perfect spot for him. So let's talk about the heavyweight bout, which is McDavid versus 6 points. Edmonton, Ottawa. This game played also on Wednesday. Draisaitl put up a hat trick. Just ridiculous stuff, like literal Harlem Globetrotters-esque goals from Draisaitl, McDavid. So minus 195 for Edmonton, over under 6.5. What say you?
Have you ever played like NHL video game and you're playing someone that's like never played before? That's what it's like when McDavid and Draisaitl are on the ice against Ottawa. It's just
like, hey, your controller is upside down.
You gotta try to no play defense. Okay, all right, never mind. I already scored. All right, let's move on to the next play. All right. So it is. Yeah, I mean those two guys together, it's really, really, really good. They're very good at hockey. So yeah, that's tough. And most of the guys in Ottawa are not that good at hockey. So it seems easy enough in many capacities. I think Leon Draisaitl has really taken over as a shot taker. We were in on those odds for a while. They're not as good as they once were because he's been shooting a ton. He had 7 shots on goal in that hat trick match. But if you get him at 2.5 and you can find him at fair enough odds, I think you take that all day. McDavid, on the other hand, I love the multi-point game here. It is going to be kind of priced accordingly. Yeah, not good, but it's fine in the parlay. I mean, him to get a point is going to be just like egregious. So you're just not going to want to put money on that unless if you're taking like a 10 game or a 10 wayer and you just want to get like something that feels really safe here.
Yeah,
Other,
I don't want to get too. I mean, I just want to stick to Draisaitl McDavid. I kind of like Draisaitl first goal, 8-1, plus 106 to score as well. Like anytime, that's like Draisaitl with McDavid has just been the trigger man. And of course, part of that is because McDavid is such a pass first player. But like when McDavid hasn't been with Draisaitl, you have seen his shot rates tick up. But Draisaitl at this point, I mean, he's actually putting up like elite shot numbers. And even before this most recent game where he had like 7 or 8 shots for his hat trick, he was putting up 2-3 shots a night on like 6 or 7 shot attempts. Like he was a guy who I think we could see coming. And now that we saw it come on Wednesday, you just got to do it. I think in DFS and in betting, that's just where I'm sticking. I'm not playing around with Jesse Puljujarvi props. I'm not trying to get cute and say, oh, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on the power play. Like, no, I'm just jamming in McDavid. I'm jamming in Draisaitl. And maybe Tyson Barrie is like my third guy. But I don't think you'll get very good props on him. So I don't really think there's too much more I want to talk about in this game. But I do think that Edmonton, minus 200 is certainly worth a look as well.
All right. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. The over under anything, or just like Ottawa might not score. So
yeah. And if they score, it'll be Brady Tkachuk. So
yeah. Okay. We can move over to Nashville at Detroit. Nashville did not end up with Arvidsson as we thought could be the case. They ended up playing a not very good team, and they didn't get very good results. So what are your thoughts going into this game? I mean, I think the first and foremost is that there's a lot of value here against Detroit, and anytime there's value against Detroit, that feels really good. I mean, Nashville did get the win, I guess, but like just it
didn't feel like it.
Uphill bat. It didn't feel like it, right? I mean, so Fabro got hurt as well, which we should probably mention. He only played 4 minutes because of the injury. Not sure what they're going to do there, but that gave Yossi and Ekholm both 28 minutes of ice time. They'll both be back. I love the Yossi. I'll just start with that. The Yossi shot prop. I'm going to be on it for sure. Yossi to have a point. I'm going to be in on that. Definitely. I mean, maybe even 2 points. I don't really know what they're going to do with that quite yet, because I don't know if they know who to take for Nashville, because there's just so many random players playing.
No Forsberg, no Arvidsson. Yeah, it could be Yossi for sure. Getting those multi-point props on DraftKings.
Multi-point game from him I think is in play. The top power play was Granlund, Yonkrock, who both correlate on 5-on-5 with Yossi, and then Johansson and Tolvanen, who also correlate at 5-on-5. Rocco Grimaldi ended up being the third piece of that Johansson line, which was surprising for sure. He played 14 minutes power play too. But like I'm more of getting at is if you kind of like Nashville again here, they're really, really cheap. And if you're playing McDavid and Draisaitl, they make a lot of sense because a lot of their wingers are, I think, kind of the focal points here as far as like Grimaldi potentially or Yonkrock, who I'm a little bit higher on. So what are your thoughts on this game? Are you going back to Nashville? Nashville, again, minus 152. Are you looking at the over at all? What are your thoughts?
I don't think I can pull the trigger on the over. As great as it was to watch Adam Ernie score on my DFS goalie on Tuesday, I don't think I will bet the under or the over. I will just stay away from that. And as far as this Nashville side, how I handle that from a which players do I chase? It does kind of feel like Kelly Yonkrock is the guy that I want. I love Tolvanen, but at this point, he's now priced, I think, appropriately to score. I mean, plus 180. And yeah, he had 4 shots on goal last game, but he's also 5K on DraftKings. Like he's not as cheap as he was before. And we're just seemingly getting the same shots from Yonkrock. So why not? Why not just do that? It also means I don't have to play Ryan Johansson. I don't need to be tempted. You can't trick me. I'll just play Granlund, who's basically the same in my book, but slightly less scars, I guess, on my resume there. So, that does certainly make a lot of sense. And on the Detroit side, I mean, what more is there to say? It's just, it's kind of a wreck. Like Evgeny Svechnikov actually did get a look with the top line last game. I, maybe if he stays for more than just a cup of coffee, you could talk me into him at plus 330, but he didn't stick around for long. So the minutes just don't seem like they'll be there. And I don't really want to play, Larkin or Mantha roulette and just hope that they have one of their good games, because it's very difficult for them to sustain anything given the team around them.
Right. Yeah, I pretty much fully agree. I mean, I think Yossi is going to make it into a few of my DraftKings lineups. I think he might be my favorite defenseman on the slate. Price considered, it's kind of him and Hedman 1-2. That's kind of where my head's at, but yeah. I'm not sure if I'm going to give a lot of that just because of how much I like these upper price players, which we already mentioned. So other than that, prop bet Yossi over and the Nashville side, and we can move over to the final game of the night, which I believe we're always wrong when we talk about Chicago games. So take it with a grain of salt. But Chicago, the home team against Dallas, I guess a slight favorite. It's almost a dead pick 'em. Over under 5.5. I mean, what do you do?
I just got the shivers just thinking about like the idea that I will not bet Dallas in this spot.
How many times have we been Lincoln this year? Like, that's really the question. Like, I feel like it's always Lincoln. Like, it was Lincoln, right? Like, it definitely was.
I don't even know that it was. It just sort of feels like Dallas doesn't want to score a goal.
Whenever we're high on Dallas, they decide it's not their night to score. They take that one off.
Like,
I think it was Lincoln. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I mean, yeah, he was the goalie, but I don't think it was like, I don't think he was doing anything miraculous. Well, it was just like, Dallas was just like, we don't want the puck anymore. Like, Patrick Kane, you take the puck and go do things. It's like, well, no, guys, you're the ones who need the puck. And it was just like, I don't know. It was a bit of a mess. I mean, it's like the fourth time on this show that I've been made to look like a jackass. Cause I'm like, look, this is the time. This is the spot for Dallas. And I just don't think I'll pound the table for them anymore.
No. So yeah, I think it's a fair enough bet. I think the over is a little bit higher on, honestly. And then the guy that I kind of want to highlight is Jason Robertson, who it just doesn't seem priced correctly still for his to score. He is plus 240. Getting him as a shot prop is going to be really hard to find, I'm assuming. I just don't think the books get acclimated to what these teams are doing at all. But he's getting all the minutes, all the shots, everything you really want in a guy. So his to score, his to have a point or a power play point, if you can find it on FanDuel, maybe could be interesting to me. He's just kind of this guy that is really popping in many different metrics, and I think will continue to, that I like. And DraftKings is like, oh, he's doing great, but we're just going to raise Pavelski's price. And it's like, oh, okay, great. Like, and we're going to give you shot props for Pavelski. And it's like, no, give us someone else. Like, he doesn't hit though. Like, I think he did hit it in this last game for the first time in like a calendar year. But it's just like, we're not finding odds for him. But I definitely think that I'm willing to go back to the well on this line with Heiskanen again, in some sort of a DraftKings situation. And it definitely is going to be centered around Robertson for sure.
Yeah. So I will say, and again, I'm talking about FanDuel because we find like more players, I guess, over on FanDuel. I did find Kirby Dach point at like plus money. It was like plus 110 the other day. And, he scored a goal. So that obviously hit, but he's centering. True. He's centering Kane and DeBrincat, and he's on the top power play of Kane and DeBrincat. Like, he should not be plus money, even if he was a plug, and he's not a plug. He's a third overall pick with a ton of pedigree, a ton of talent, and a two-way player to boot. So he's not going to be pulled off the ice in, like late game situations. So I really like Kirby Dach here. Like, I think he's sort of the guy that I want the most exposure to. And it does make sense in DFS, especially, you can't play him with Edmonton, but Kane DeBrincat are mega upside guys themselves. And you get a cheap guy like Dach. You even get their power play mate, Adam Boqvist, which, hasn't hit yet, but it will, I promise. And when it does, you'll ride a 3% owned defenseman to the moon for, GPPs and all that. So like, that's, I think, my primary interest, but I do like Jason Robertson too. All the reasons you said. He's been uber consistent, getting all the minutes. Like, he's a real nice player. So that's sort of my thoughts on this. I will focus more on the player side versus like betting on one of these two teams because, frankly, I don't know. Last game of the night, though, I will be doing the live game trigger finger. If this game is anywhere near overtime, I will be betting on Chicago live because, Dallas in overtime, not great. 10 OT losses on the year.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it is the last game of the night at 8 p.m. So if you're, sweating the Masters after one day and you can get to bed early.
Yeah,
you can get
tired
up early,
from a long day. Yeah.
Definitely. So with all of that being said, let's get to a couple of our favorite bets of the night. There's a lot of, I think, really good lines. I think my favorite, though, is the Winnipeg side. That's going to be the one that I think that it's not obviously perfect. Montreal is a good team, and they've been really good, but injuries have started to plague them a bit, and I like the idea of Winnipeg here. Well, those have some injuries in their own right, but I think their goaltending solid, and they'll get the job done in Montreal.
Yeah, and I love that. I think that might actually be my favorite overall bet. But to be different, I will go with the New Jersey Buffalo over. That is the one I feel most confident in. I think both of those teams defensively lack so much, and the Sabres showing signs of life on offense is a great sign for that over. So I could totally see another 5-3 type game in the cards. So one thing I might even do the alternate goal total and just get better odds to say over 6.5. Like, I don't think that's a great approach most of the time. Like, I do think there is a bit more juice in, altering the line. But shop around, see what you like, see what fits and what makes sense in your, either cards or your parlays or whatever. Because I do think there are more ways to go than just saying, oh, the line's 5.5. That's the number I have to bet.
Yeah, definitely. Last one, I'm going to do the over. So this is going to be a 50-50. It's either over on the headband shot, which I think is going to be good no matter what. But if Stamkos is with point, I like his over again. He did hit on Tuesday, and if he's with Braden Point, one of the best kind of setup men in the league potentially, who can shoot the puck in his own right. But I think he's kind of been definitely focusing there more as of late. I really like that shot prop. I think they'll give them a ton of run together.
I like that too. For my second, I will go with this of the team side. I like Washington at home, -118. You might even get no McAvoy yet again. I really think that Washington's a top-down solid team, and Boston has shown plenty signs of weakness lately. Bergeron had that great game, but that was, it's not been a team effort from them. It's been sort of individual efforts, getting them dubs, because their expected goals numbers aren't the best as of late. And Washington is putting up, reasonably solid numbers, and they're just scoring a ton like we would expect with a team with their talent. So I like Washington there at home at basically a pick on -118. So any DFS thoughts? I mean, I know we talked about McDavid and Draisaitl. If you want to hear us talk a lot more about DFS, check out the Morning Skate podcast. We obviously went in depth on this slate and talked about even more, value type plays that you could find. But, what are you thinking? Like, maybe let's do something where's one way you're looking to leverage off of Edmonton, yes, and then one way you sort of want to play a cheap stack with them.
Okay. So I brought this out, show that before, but I have the scarf from the Global Series. And it's Tampa and Buffalo. They both fit together really nicely. So I kind of built a lineup, and I'm not sure if I'm going to use this or not. So, you don't have to, definitely don't copy this or whatever, but Reinhart, Olofsson, Dahlin, Point, Palat, Stamkos with McDavid and Camper and Hellebuck fits. So you still get a piece of McDavid in that scenario, or you could play Draisaitl and upgrade Camper to someone else if you like. So that fits.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good stack if Draisaitl gets hit by a bus on the way to the game.
You could just play Draisaitl instead. You could just say, okay, I'm going to play
then
the Kings of Leon Draisaitl, and then you have $700.
And then that would be a great stack if Connor McDavid gets struck by lightning on the way to the game.
Okay, you could play neither of them as well.
There we go. Bingo. You solved it.
And you play Robertson and you have 6,200. You either play that sweet Miro and upgrade goalie, or just enough for Klingberg. Yeah, we have 400 left. You can do whatever you want.
My last bet, I'm sure, goes with my leverage point. Ovechkin. Duh. Like, you want to talk about a guy who can get a hat trick on 8 shots on goal, like Leon did on Wednesday. Come on down, Mr. Ovechkin. Like, here you go. I don't think that'll be my primary approach. Like, I definitely do think I will be trying to jam in Edmonton because I do think there are, some cheaper stacks that I really like. But if you want leverage, I do think Ovechkin, Kuznetsov is cheap enough to where it's actually reasonable. And then, John Carlson or TJ Oshie, like both, those guys I think are also very reasonably priced as well. And with, decent upside, and I think they will be much lower owned. So we talk about leverage. I like Washington, but I love the scarf idea. If that scarf wins us a GPP tomorrow, we might have to buy you a hat.
Yeah, I'm doing it. I mean, I am going to make the lineup. I think I might just put it in now after all this talk. I mean, I don't know how I want to put it together yet with the other two, but like for the time being, I'm just going to put it in with Robertson and Heiskanen, and I might not end up playing Dahlin or something. I might make a change because the Sabres, you really could go 2 ways about them. But I just think that the Reinhart-Olofsson line didn't get it done last time out, but definitely could in this matchup. Like there's nothing against it. So, okay. Yep. I should have a Klingberg in for now. He's good too. They're both good. Okay. Right. Anything else before we get on out of here?
No, just make sure you're checking out all the other stuff on the Mayo Media Network between baseball. Obviously, no more Masters, but actually, Pat's doing a Cut Sweat Live or something like that on Friday. So be sure to check that out. That should be a lot of fun. Hopefully watching. Okay. Yeah, hopefully watching all of our lineups get 6 of 6 and partying all weekend. But yeah, no, should be a fun NHL slate out there. Should be a fun weekend with golf and baseball and everything else going on. So yeah, be sure to check us out on Twitter. I am at Fake Moods. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94, and the Mayo Media Net at leave us any comments you want there. Lastly, head on over to Prize Picks, sign on up using promo code MMN, and best of luck with your entries. So from DJ and from myself, thank you for listening, and we are out.